Alright guys, in this video we're gonna have a look at the wet lines at Lonato in 60 Mini. So we're gonna see that the yellow one is doing mostly wrong lines, whereas the red one is doing really good lines. And also I believe this to be very educational, because you know, sometimes we believe that doing less meters is always better. You know, that's what you know, people teach sometimes without really thinking at the lap time consequence that this kind of teaching can give. So I wanted to also give you that idea in terms of data, in terms of lap time and speed difference through the corners, to justify the difference in meters that the red is going to show, the red driver is going to do. So I just quickly want to show you, look at the end of the lap here. I probably don't know if you can see here because probably my image is overlaying, but there's 2.7 seconds difference at the end of the lap. Obviously this is not an ideal lap from the yellow, but the yellow obviously didn't do a good job overall here in this session, in this day, in the wet. You can see in terms of meter, look, there's a nice way to see with this data analysis. You can see the total amount of meters here. So you can see 1,194 meters for the yellow, and for the red 1,247. If you use the calculation and if you make the calculation 1,247 minus what was the red, 1,194, okay, minus 1, I actually already have made the calculation, but let's see if you get it right. 52. It's 52 meters of difference that the red does more than the yellow. So how on earth can the red be faster than the yellow if it makes 52 meters more? It doesn't seem like it makes sense. And to be honest, like, I received a lot of bad feedback, bad advice when I was young. And a lot of times they would tell me, oh, you have to go tighter, you have to go tighter, you have to make less meters, less distance. It works with the KZs, you know, with shifters. It also does work with junior and seniors most of the time, when you obviously have to take a tighter line, you know, when you have to make a V-shaped line, like for example, here, say the hairpin here, you arrive in juniors, you brake hard, you hold the brakes, go around the curb, come off, and it's like that. You come out like that. And it's the same like here with shifter, you come, you hook the curb. Actually, it's not perfect drawing. Actually, let me redo it. You hook the curb, all right, you're right here, you hook the curb, and then bam, you come out. That's pretty much what you do. Obviously with Mini you can't. Why? Because you don't have the power, you don't have the torque, you don't have that, all of the, and you don't have the front brakes to, and the braking capacity to stop here and go around the, you can still, like, by the way, in Mini you can still do it if you have to overtake somebody, but you will get slaughtered on the exit. Like, there's no way you can get a good exit in Mini by doing that, so you will lose so much time. And so obviously Mini requires different types of driving, and to be honest, in other categories as well. Sometimes, occasionally, I will not say in every corner, but in few corners you can open up the lines. For example, I believe here in turn 1 and 2 in juniors, there is a lot of drivers that actually go wide here, even off the curb, off the track, getting an advantage. Yes, everybody does it, so well, you can do it too. So yeah, for example, there's a few fast corners where in juniors as well. Like, to be honest, I drove KZ, and actually I won a race here in KZ in the wet by like, it's like 16 seconds or 15 seconds. I don't remember, like a big race. And I remember I was going here, doing exactly the red line here. It was completely wide, and I was gaining at 3/10 in sector 1 just for that. And it was totally legal. And you know, this was proving the point that even in a big car with a lot of speed, a lot of braking efficiency, I was not doing the conventional line of staying tight like everybody would do, like staying tight, hook the curb here, and staying tight again. Simply, yes, you made a lot less meters, but I was carrying so much more speed doing exactly like the red line here that it was giving me so much time benefit. So in this case, let's have a look exactly. Actually, I'm going to close this down and I'll focus more on the lines like I promised I would do. So you can see that okay, they're cutting a bit turn 1. I mean, obviously they're gonna put the barriers here in the race, so you can't cut as much, but you can still cut a bit, like up until the red. They typically put the barriers until the white, but anyways, when you arrive, you should stay that all the way through flat. And here, when you do this wide line like the red does, you get so much more speed. You know why? Because basically you're on the less grippy part of the track. So in this area, you can see where is the black. The black is here. What is the black? The black is grip. Okay, this is all of the grip that from the dry that obviously they lay down, which means it's grippy in the dry, but it's so slippery on the wet because it becomes like a oily, spongy. Yeah, it becomes very, very slippery. So obviously when you go over it, it's like on ice. You're driving on ice. So yes, the yellow makes a lot less meters, but he's fooling himself because he's carrying so much less speed. Do you want to see how much less speed he has to carry there? In this exact point, look, in this exact point, he's carrying just 72 kilometers against 81 from the red. Is 9 kilometers difference. Okay, so all the way through. Okay, if we look by the way at the sector times, in sector 1, it's just a tenth of difference. To be honest, sector 1 is the least bad for him. You know, it's not that bad, but it's 10 seconds in time, and it's just from here to here. So it's 1/10 only lost in this corner. And by the way, the other kid had even longer, the yellow kid had longer sprocket, so he would gain on the straight here. This would be his sector where he had to gain, because he had the longer sprocket, he had to have more top speed. Here is where he had to gain, but yet he still lost here. So he lost a tenth. Here, he invented this line by going tight. Typically, this line, actually, when it's drying up, it's very effective. You know, going over the curve there, it's very effective. But when it's drying up and it's like, sometimes this really works. I've seen drivers doing it and very successfully, even in Mini. I mean, juniors and senior in KZ, like I give it for granted, they have to do this. But in Mini, it starts to work when it gets drying up. But here it was soaking full wet, so this didn't make any sense. And if you look at how much he lost, like obviously here, look, there's a massive difference in terms of line. The red is doing a very good job. He's on. Okay, here is not perfectly aligned because you would not actually want to touch the curb on the brakes. I believe I have to realign this a little bit. Let me do it actually for a second. Hopefully we don't crash the system while doing that. Yeah, it's more like that. So that's yeah, it's more like that. So the red is basically going on the edge of the white line there. It's not touching the curb, and it's going a bit wide there. It's going actually over the red here because actually, think about it, it's very clever what he's doing. Because here's the rubber, but here there's no rubber. In this area, there is no rubber. So he is getting so much traction out of it, and his exit is unbelievable. If you look how much the red is gaining over the yellow here, it's unbelievable. In terms of lap time, it's quite massive. Okay, so there's a massive speed difference. Actually, that was not the right lap. The right lap is this one. So yeah, obviously the yellow, I guess, is doing. He did a mistake here. He had to overtake because he just lost too much time. But then it's like it shows here in the data that it's like 6, 8, 7 tenths or even more, about 8 tenths. I don't want, you know, the delta time is not perfect in the wet, by the way, because obviously you have to compute the distance and obviously the time that you have in terms of difference. So you have to compute these things, whereas in the dry is a lot less different in terms of distance. So it's a bit of a guesswork in terms of delta time here in the wet, unfortunately. Now we're right into the mechanics corner. Look at the difference. The red is doing exactly what I want, which is doing, look, what is it doing on the brake? Look, where is the grip? Once again, the grip is where the black is, and the yellow is just relentlessly braking exactly like, it looks like he's doing a dry line, or he forgot that he was wet. Look where he's following completely the dark dry bit on the braking. So who do you think is able to brake deeper and harder? The red was braking off the rubber, all right? He's braking off the rubber. Like I'm making that wavy thing just to show you that he's different. Than who is going to brake off the rubber, and then he's actually, you know, stopping the car nicely. Obviously, look, this is the only area. Let me change the color. This is the only area where they join the black, where they join the rubber. Okay, this is the only area where they join the rubber, and it's impossible to just skip past the rubber. Like at some point you have to join it, you know my point? Like you cannot go past it. At some point you have to join it. But it's good to just touch it here, and then you just touch it here when you cross it. It's called a crossover. Okay, it's called a rubber crossover. That's what I call it. So you have it here, you have it here. And ideally you want to have this as little as possible throughout the lap so that you can basically have more grip, obviously, okay? So we don't want to be sliding around. So easily here you'll be braking really hard. Likely, actually, we're not braking there yet, actually. Based on my calculation, we start to hit the brakes at about here. Let me see if I'm right. Yeah, this is where we hit the brakes. This is where the red hit the brakes. So actually a little bit beyond what I thought. Okay, so it's here. Okay, so that's where the red is hitting the brakes. It's later than the yellow, by the way. And now the data is a bit misaligned, but you get my point. My goal is just to look at the lines right now. So you can see the red is hitting the brakes there, and he's very sharp on the brakes, I would say, until here. Okay, so from here to here, very sharp braking, like almost like trying to lock up the tires. But then here it gets less sharp. He still holds the brake, but you see, because why? We are over the rubber, and here we don't, like, we need to be a bit careful. So we need to be super sharp, like I would say 100% of braking here. Okay, and then here becomes like 60%. Then here becomes like 30%, and you need to hold the brake still, all right, up until I would say this point. And this is where you come off the brakes. You just do a full lock for a little time, and here's where you go back on the throttle, about in this point. Okay, so you can see you hold the brakes massively for a bit, then it's a bit less because we're crossing the rubber, and you a little bit less again because we have almost ended the braking, and we still hold it a little bit, like 20% up until here. And then we get on the gas, like a little bit of dead zone, like a very tiny bit where we're rotating the car off the brakes, and then we get on the gas. But it's very short, this distance without brakes. It's very short, almost no distance. And look, who do you think is going to have a little bit? Okay, the red now turns in a little bit earlier. Okay, he makes a bit less distance in there. I don't think that it's what makes him pay off, but it's typically better to like the red because here there's paint. You see the paint? So the yellow is taking a big risk here, getting so close to the paint. So it doesn't mean that you have to stay far away from the paint, like 10 meters away from it. But obviously, if you keep like 10 centimeters, like in this case, there is from the yellow to when you will make a little mistake, you will go deep and you will go over the paint. The paint in the dry doesn't make much difference, but in the wet, it gets so slippery. So when you go over there, you have no steering, you have no traction. So if you make a little mistake and you go over the red, even though you may lose 1/10 in theory, but you actually lose like half a second because this car is very slippery, or 4/10, I would say, something like that. So that's actually to me very so it's something very important to remember. Okay, so break off the racing. Like, to be honest, I've seen more experienced drivers even do it more opposite, like more exaggerated. You can come here and just like bam, like this, even more diagonal. Actually, this is too much, my bad. So you arrive, so we said here's the braking point. You arrive and you just like hit the brakes there, and you just go in diagonal there, and you just keep turning, bam. You don't have to turn here, by the way. The steering is straight because when you straight it up, okay, when you straight it up, then you just don't have to turn anymore. It's just like going straight but in diagonal. I hope you understand my point there. Then we go to the next corner. We see there similar scenario as in to the turn number 2 and turn number 1 and turn number 3. We can see that red is trying to keep it tight for no reason. Like if we look at the sector difference in the in sector 2, sorry, I made a little mistake. If you look at sector 2, is 31.64. I get 33.21. Like, I don't know if you guys are good at math, but let's make it 33.29 minus 31.64. It's a huge amount. It's 1.65. It's so there's 1.65 seconds lost from here, from the middle of turn 2 until here. So it's basically this corner. So in 3 corners we lost what was 1.6 seconds. So we lost a huge amount of time here as well. Why? Because basically the yellow, okay, forget about here, is I think it's not properly aligned. Like I have to align it more like that. Okay, here's more aligned like this actually. So what I see is that actually let me All right. Okay, now it's perfect. Should be. So what we see is that when you arrive there, the yellow starts to turn in early because it breaks early. Look in the data. Oh my god, always the same issue. Always the same issue. I see that every time someone breaks early, they turn in early. It's just a pattern. Look, break like crazy amount earlier, and because of that, he has to turn in early. Like not he has to, but he just automatically does it, subconscious. So you're turning in earlier. It goes over. Look again. This is very important, guys. Like I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. Like look, he's basically he's crossing the rubber very early on. Okay, so let's say actually for the ones who turn a bit later, look, he's crossing the rubber here and he's staying so long in this area over the rubber bit. You see that? And there's no grip there. There's no grip in the wet. So you can see that he has to carry so much less speed all the way through. He just cannot match the red at any point, and the red is just breaking so much deeper. Look here. Look at the difference. This kid breaks here and the other kid breaks there. If you try to show, it's a massive difference. It's like, I will show you later exactly. It's like 10 meters or something. So it's going over the, like wider. There's no grip over there because why there's no grip? Like, sorry, there's no grip. I mean, there's no rubber. There is no rubber means there is a lot of grip in the wet because nobody goes here in the dry, hopefully, unless it's because you make a mistake. But yeah, or even here, you don't really go here in the dry, or even here, you don't go here in the dry. Yes, here you go out in the dry. So this is, remember what we said before, is that rubber crossover. This is where it kind of gets you, which is almost impossible to avoid because at some point you have to avoid it. But look, we only cross it here at the very beginning of the braking, and here if you're the red. The yellow crosses there, crosses here. You can tell like the least amount of crossover you have in the wet in a corner, it's better. Like the rubber crossover, the better it is. So you can clearly realize that the red was going to be a lot faster in this corner. But yeah, same problem. Obviously, you don't want to overdo it, guys. Like, listen to me. You don't want to go here. Come on, don't be silly. In this case, he went there. I think he over pushed a bit, to be honest, because I think he could have still done the corner a little bit like less wide, if I'm honest with you, because you know there is equal grip here. Here and here, there's no difference in grip. Actually, here, if you're risky, because if you go over the paint, you're screwed. I was going to say the F word, but yeah. So I would think here is a little bit of a mistake. The red should have been less wide there. Like what he did here was great in this corner here. So in this case, it was a bit too wide and didn't make any sense for me to go that wide. Like here is perfect. Like, it's like 3/4. Like typically you want to go in mini, you want to go like 3/4 of the track width in the wet. So it's like, you see, 3/4. If you go 4/4, like here, it's like 4/4. It's like full wide. Here it's okay. Here's 1/4, I would say, where the yellow is going. If you go in the middle here, it's 2/4, so it's half. So you get my point. You want to be like 3/4. Here is about 3/4. That's good. Here is about 3/4 of the track. Here is about 3/4. So you see, in general, that's where you want to aim at, in the mid corner, in mini. Okay. Then also in other categories, in the faster corners, but in mini, when you have to go when you have to do a wide corner, then you have to basically go about 3/4. So let's go forward. Like, let's speed this up. I know it's getting quite long, but I like to put the details there because the details are the important one. Look, the difference here again. A massive difference here. The red is stopping nicely. This is what I want. What I mean, like going over the curb and putting the inside wheel inside the curb, like touching the grass. Because by doing so, you hook the curb, and that's the right way. You need to hook it, and that when you hook it, the car rotates. So you don't have the understeer that is so painful in the wet at the apex. So you hook it there, and here, to be honest, it is a slightly mistake because I didn't really use it. So the yellow did better. But look, the problem here, look, the yellow where is facing. Here is going, like the yellow is braking, to be honest, in the right place. He's going too fast there. For some, look at here in the data. In this area, he's going too fast for no reason, because it's the only place you don't have to go fast. Here, you have to be like here in the wet. The slower you are at the apex, typically, the better. like not for real. Like typically, like you want to stop. Obviously, you don't want to stop like you're zero, but like it's better to brake deep, hard, hold the brakes efficiently, and stop a little bit more so you can have a little bit better preparation for this corner, like the red does. And then bam, you hit the curb. I think you could have done, the both could have done a better job, like the red. And then bam, you see you're not too wide there, and then you can let it go run out earlier. But what the problem is that the red, look, is facing the outside, whereas the red is facing the exit better, a lot better. So who do you think is gonna have better traction? The red that is facing here, or the red, the yellow is facing there, or the red is facing here? Clearly the red. He has much better angle. Okay, so that's what you have to aim at. But everything, you know, for the yellow started here because he went too fast. You know, he couldn't stop it. And here it was completely on the wrong, and it was obvious that he was going to go straight here. It was obvious. So everything started here because he didn't commit to stopping at the first apex, which is so common. And we have a massive time loss there as well. It's difficult to say exactly, but yeah, it seems like there's quite a bit. If you look just purely at the delta time, it shows there is, it says half a second. I don't believe it. I mean, we saw that at the end of the lap it's 2.7 seconds, but there's about 4 or 5 tenths difference here in the chicane just because you overshot the apex. Look here in the first hairpin. Now the hairpins are very important. Look at how much we lost in terms of like, look, the sector times don't lie. You know, the sector times don't lie. There's 21.45, the red, 22.39, the yellow. It's about 1 second, 95 hundredths, about, so 9.5 tenths loss in the last sector from here. From basically, you see this little thing here, you see that? Let me actually highlight it. So this, from where this begins, from here to the start finish, which is about there, this 1 second difference. It's huge. In 10 laps, 1 second per lap, it's 10 seconds. Just in 3 corners, it's unacceptable. So, okay, the yellow makes a lot less meters. That could be his argument, but does it make any sense to make less meters? Because look, if you want to be the brave guy and make less meters, why don't you just do the dry line? Why don't you just go all around here, you know, go for the dry line here. All right, let's make it like that. I mean, I'm not a really good drawer with my mouse. Let's say you make a dry line like that. Well, good job, you make less meters. But does it pay off in lap time? No, not at all. At least in mini, at least in these conditions, at least in this track, in the wet. Obviously, as I said, if you are in KZ and you have to make a tight line, or in juniors and you have to hook the curb here, you have to go around the corner because you have the front brakes, because you have the gears that the engine brake slows you down, because you have the torque, you know, to get you out of the corners really quickly with first gear and second gear. You know, obviously you want to make those kind of lamps, but with mini, they can't. And sometimes juniors also, like Junior X30 or Junior Rock, they don't have so much power. They may have to do something like creative. I remember what I was doing here in junior and in senior. I actually really liked it. For example, I was braking super hard. Actually, not like that. I was braking in the middle of the track, super hard, carrying so much speed. And honestly, it was so counterintuitive, but I was not stopping at the apex. I was stopping later. I was stopping like here, so that when I would get on the throttle here, okay, actually that's too wide. Shit, I have to redo it. So when I was going here and I would basically clip the curb, and then I would stop there, and I was like going straight, you know, and I would hit, when I would rejoin the crossover, I would be straight. So I would be having little wheel spin, but I would carry so much speed in this area, but like, because I would go like, let's say 10 kilometers faster than everybody, I would say, not everybody, but like the average driver who would stop like here. Let's say the average driver would do this. They would arrive with a lot less speed, turn around this, and they would do like that. That's what they would do. Okay, they would avoid the rubber there by being there. I would avoid the rubber there by being off the rubber, but I would have a lot more speed in here. And I would have the benefit here because they would be still turning there. I would be straight. So I would do this in that hairpin, and I would do it in this hairpin here, exactly the same. So actually I was going so deep, and it was like going straight like that. And actually I was doing it the same. I was like touching the curb here so fast like that. And then, but you don't have to do it like half, because if you do it halfway, you just like do it like this, and you just like, oh, I'm like this. then you're so slow in this point, you have so much wheel spin. So you have to either do it fully or not. Anyways, this is a story for another day. I may make a video about that in the future. But I think that was a nice thing to say. So you see the red has a completely different approach from the yellow. And you think is faster or slower? We already said it's about a second faster. So he's braking deeper. Look at the data. He's braking deeper everywhere. And because it's braking deeper, obviously here in Lonato, it doesn't pay off to break off the rubber like we do in the mechanics corner. It doesn't pay off to do this kind of line. Why? Because to be honest, for some reason, don't ask me why, but it's not that slippery here in the wet. So you can just go straight here, brake normally like in the dry, brake deep, and just go wide. Like literally, there has to be little space from the barriers here and here. Look, there's such a little space from the barriers. It's so little. It's almost like a street circus to an extent. And you know, why? Because for some reason it works, but it just does. So if you make, I repeat, if you make less distance, okay, I know this is not a typical 3/4. Like remember, like I said before, you have to be 3/4. So this is like half. This is like 1/4. So let's say this is one. Okay, this is 0. This is 1/4. This is 2/4. This is 3/4 of the track. I don't know if you guys did math and did quarters, but this is 4/4. Imagine there's like a pie and there's like 4 slices. Okay. This is like one slice. This is one quarter of the pie. This is 2/4, so including the first and the second. This is 3/4, so 1, 2, and 3, and this is 4/4. Okay, so this is all. Right, so this is 0, 1/4, 2/4. So let's say if I would use my theory, okay, that we would have to go here about 3/4, which is by the way very close to what we're doing. Okay, which is very, very close to what we're doing. It's a bit more than 3/4 here. So obviously you need to kind of adjust that theory accordingly. But in this case, look, this is 2/4, this is 0, this is 1/4, this is 3, and this is 4. So you see again, it's a little bit more, it's 3.4/4. So look again here. So we make that. So it's 1/4, 0, 2, 3, and 4. So again, actually this is spot on 3/4. So you see, it doesn't always have to be perfect, but you get my point. Like it typically works to be at 3/4 in a wet and mini. It avoids the rubber, it's carrying nice and grip. And then the great thing is this here, okay, is this guy, the red is straight. This is the point. The yellow is not straight, guys. You can see it when he's rejoining the rubber. The yellow is pointing in this direction. The same here, the yellow is pointing in this direction. Whereas the red, which I'm coloring in blue, just to not confuse you, you see the direction? Direction is like pointing there. Actually, let me not do that, otherwise it gets confusing. So one is pointing this the way, one is pointing outward. One is pointing straight, one is pointed outward. Look, again, which color is this? The blue. The red here, it's like pointing almost straight, whereas the yellow is pointing a little bit outward. Not so much, but it's a little bit outward. And who do you think is going to have the better exit? The one who is pointing straight over the rubber, because remember, the cross, if it's wet, if it's dry, it doesn't make massive difference. It does a little bit, but not so much. But when it's obviously wet and you're rejoining the rubber, who do you think is going to have the better exit? The one who's straight when they cross the rubber, or the one who's still turning? Obviously, I hope you get the right answer. So obviously the one who's straight gets a better exit. It gets less wheel spin. So because you get less wheel spin, you can put a bigger sprocket, which typically it helps in the wet. And because you know so many kids complain, oh, I wheel spin. So what do the mechanics do? They just put the smaller sprocket, like almost in between what is in the dry and wet, I would say. And that's to me a big mistake, because you don't learn the technique and you never get the exit right. So you can still do it's like you can still do the bad technique and not get punished, but still in terms of lap time is bad, because in the wet you need to have a really big sprocket, and like the better you are driving, the better the biggest sprocket you can be. Like it's counterintuitive, because in the dry it's the opposite, because in the dry the better you are, the better, the longer sprocket you can run. Like the smaller one you can, because you can carry more speed into the corners, you have higher RPMs, and therefore you can put a smaller sprocket, which gives you, like say, less bottom to compensate the exit, but you have better top. So yeah, okay, I didn't want to digress. So you see, it's very important, and you can see that in the data here, by the way, that the exits of the red are better everywhere. So you not only gains on the braking, let me show you, let me actually align, because not aligned, as I said, there was a massive amount of difference in terms of meters. So look, not only the red gains on every single braking, but he also gains on every single exit. Look, the red gains on the entry, mid, and he gains massively on the exit. Look, he gains on the entry, mid, and he gains massively. How do I tell? Look, let me show you. Like, this is the exit difference. It's huge. This is the exit difference. It's not aligned, but actually let me align it, because I have to align it every single time. So you see, it's aligned, bam, look at the difference. Look in the last corner. It's aligned like that pretty much. And look at the difference again in the last corner. It's like, in the exit, one is at 51. In this point, one is at 51 and the other is at 45. So much difference, 6. Forget about the dots here, because they are misaligned in the map. But let's say at this very point where the yellow is, it's where there is 7 kilometers difference, 54 against 47. Okay, because the red can get on the throttle earlier, and when he gets here, he has more speed, and he also has straighter steering wheel. Guys, I hope this was very helpful. I tried my best again explaining this to you. You can take screenshots if you want and try to like review it for the next time you will go on track in the wet, in any track, I would say, not just Lonato. And I believe this to be very helpful. And obviously here at BabyRace, we try to do this kind of work after every session. Try to do a video and data analysis as much as we can, so that we can bring you from beginner to advanced in as short as amount of time, and improve obviously your results as a consequence. And I do believe that quality practice is key. Just practicing in terms of quantity that doesn't pay off. It's important to get a quality driving. So quality coaching, that is key, I would say, because that's the only way you can learn and get better. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you got any questions in the comments below. Like and subscribe to the channel for future updates, for future videos. And yeah, just also let me know if you got any other video ideas in the comments. And I hope this was valuable. I'll see you in the next video.